So we are here in the month of August, and something that I like to do every single NBA offseason is rank the top 30 players in each position. You guys really enjoyed this when I did it last year, and I think it could spark some really good debate in the comments because nobody's going to have a list that everybody is going to agree with. And like usual, we are going to start off with the point guard rankings today. So I'm going to go from 30 to 1 on how I think these guys will perform next season. This isn't what just happened last year. This is also taking into account their age, situation. Did they end the season off on the right note? And do I think they can outperform the player behind them in 2026? And if you guys do enjoy these, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. You can let me know your top 5, top 10 point guards down below. And also, I do have these players in the shooting guard rankings. So if you finished the video and you were wondering where they were ranked, Derek White, Devin Booker was a big one. I had to ask you guys on Twitter to have Devin Booker as a point guard or shooting guard, and you guys just slightly said to have him in the shooting guard rankings. I will also have Jalen Green in the shooting guard rankings as well. Kobe White, Tyler Hero, and Keontae George will all be in the shooting guard ranking video, and that's why they're not going to be listed today. And also some honorable mentions that could definitely crack the top 30 and just miss the cut for me right now. Ryan Rollins of the Milwaukee Bucks, a super underrated point guard, but it is a loaded position. Ayo Dosunmu and Trey Jones of the Chicago Bulls, Chris Paul of the LA Clippers, D'Angelo Russell of the Dallas Mavericks, Trey Mann of the Charlotte Hornets, Isaiah Collier of the Utah Jazz, and my biggest honorable mention next year, TJ McConnell of the Indiana Pacers. And one last housekeeping note before we get into the rankings, Tyrese Halliburton and Damian Lillard will not be featured here in the rankings. They're most likely not going to be playing in the 2026 season, but I will have guys like Dejounte Murray and Kyrie Irving in this ranking because I do believe we will see them at some point in 2026. So starting off at number 30, who just beat out TJ McConnell for the last spot in this ranking, Bub Carrington of the Washington Wizards. I am super excited about year 2 Bub Carrington, who just recently turned 20 years old. He played all 82 games as a rookie last year. As a teenager, he started 57 of them. He shot 34% from 3 on 5 attempts a night, averaged just under 10 points, 4.5 assists, 4 rebounds, about 40% from the field. He's a good free throw shooter when he can get to the free throw line, but I'm expecting a little bit of a bump in year 2 for Bub Carrington. There should be better players around him. I could see those assists go up as well from 4.5 a night to 5.5 or so a night, because 4.5 assists a night for somebody that was kind of a combo guard coming out of Pittsburgh was very impressive, and he was in a terrible environment last year. It was a lot of growing pains in Washington, but what he dealt with off the floor to still play 82 games impressed me a ton. He's so creative with the ball in his hands at his age, and I think he's been getting better and better after being a late bloomer at the University of Pittsburgh, being the last pick in the lottery in the 2024 draft. And I think we're going to just see him go in the right direction in Washington. He may start, he may not. He's not going to be my only Washington Wizards point guard that we're going to mention in this video, but he's going to kickstart off the rankings at number 30, and he could end up as a top 25 point guard at the end of the year for sure. Coming in at number 29 is a player that's not going to be super flashy with the scoring next year by any means, but he just was a vital part of the OKC Thunder championship team. I have Cason Wallace. The OKC Thunder have so many shooting guards. You can have Jalen Williams, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, Alex Caruso, all considered to be shooting guards, and even Cason Wallace as well. I'm just going to put him in the point guard ranking here, and a guy like Alex Caruso will be in the shooting guard ranking video next. But Cason Wallace was one of the more impressive defenders in year number 2 last year. He was a great rookie for the Thunder in 2024 when they were a 1 seed in the Western Conference and really showcased what he could be as a complementary defender to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the backcourt. And what I loved about year 2 Cason Wallace, the 3-point shot went up in terms of volume, and the efficiency didn't drop off that much either. He shot 35.5% from 3 last year, 81% from the free throw line on a very small sample size, 8.5 points, 2.5 assists, 1.8 steals, and is so good defensively. It's definitely helping him out that he's playing around so many great defenders in OKC, but he's 21 years old, and there's not many better point of attack defenders at the guard position than Cason Wallace already in his career. He played a little bit of point guard, shooting guard, and small forward last year. I'm going to classify him as a point guard for 2026, but if you wanted to have him as a shooting guard, that's fine with me. I don't think he's going to have the scoring upside as some of the guys I'm going to have ahead of him, but I still think he's a top 30 point guard next year because of the already borderline elite defense that he provides the OKC Thunder. Another tough player to rank next year is going to be Dylan Harper, the incoming number 2 overall pick from the San Antonio Spurs, and I'm going to have him here at 28 because Dylan Harper probably not going to start next year, right? You have De'Aaron Fox, who we're going to get to later in this rankings, starting at the 1. You have Stephon Castle at the 2, and Dylan Harper could end up being a shooting guard, but I do think he's going to be more of a primary ball handler for the San Antonio Spurs next year, even if he's out there with Stephon Castle. I think he's going to be the main initiator. 19 years old, coming out of Rutgers, was a great Scarlet Knight last year, where he averaged 19.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4 assists. He could score at the rim. He had an elite true shooting percentage at the rim that was over 70%. That's like a come on now you watch true shooting percentage at the rim. And Dylan Harper is a lot smaller. He's 6'5", 6'6". He can play multiple positions. He can guard multiple positions. And he can be as high on this ranking as his shot can take him, because that is going to be a big swing skill for Dylan Harper. So he shot 33% on threes last year on 150 attempts. But I think he could be a top 30 point guard next year, even though he may not end up scoring more than 15 points a night. Coming in at number 27 is going to be Malik Monk of the Sacramento Kings. I thought Malik Monk has been a pretty good player over the last few years, playing maybe under market value for these Sacramento Kings. And I have no idea why they wanted to trade Malik Monk this offseason. And that could still end up happening, but I do think he was a solid bridge point guard for the Sacramento Kings. And I probably should have mentioned Dennis Schroeder as an honorable mention as well, but Malik Monk last year did end up playing 53% of his minutes at the point guard position, according to Basketball Reference, with 46% of the minutes at the shooting guard position. Since they did add Dennis Schroeder, Malik Monk is probably going to come off the bench next year, but could still be a primary ball handler for this team with Zach LaVine at the 2. Last year, Malik Monk did average 17.2 points, a career high, 5.6 assists, also a career high, was a great free throw shooter at 86.5%, did struggle with the increased volume though. His field goal percentage did drop from 2024 to 2025, and the 3-point shot dropped as well, going from 35% in 2024 to 32.5% in 2025. But I think Malik Monk will have somewhat of a bounce back year next year, and I'd definitely be buying a lot of Malik Monk stock if he was somehow in a Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade. Kind of a similar player to Malik Monk that I think just has a little bit more upside in a new environment, Anthony Simons of the Boston Celtics. It's still TBD if Anthony Simons is going to start in that backcourt with Derek White, or maybe it's going to be Peyton Pritchard, who we'll get to in a little bit. But I'm excited to watch Anthony Simons in a new, more so winning environment with the Boston Celtics. Now, there is a possibility that the Portland Trailblazers win more games than Boston next season, but Anthony Simons has pretty much been playing for mostly a rebuilding team in Portland, and he's also going to be in a contract year as well. So I do think we could see the playmaking and the defense improved when he goes over to the Boston Celtics. Last year for Portland in 70 games, he did average 19 points, 5 assists, shot 90% from the free throw line, 36% from 3 on 8.5 attempts, but struggled at the rim, just 42% overall from the field and 49% on 2s. But I do believe in Anthony Simons in that contract year with Brad Stevens and Joe Mazzulla in Boston to be an improved defender. It's going to help that he's playing with Derek White. I think he's going to be an improved playmaker as well, dishing it off to guys like Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, and Jaylen Brown. And he could end up averaging the second most points on this Celtics team next year. And if he wants to get a nice long-term contract in free agency in 2026, he's going to have to make himself more of a well-rounded player. And I expect that to happen next year with the Celtics. It was only a 30-game sample size in the regular season, 2 playing tournament games and 4 playoff games, but DaVon Mitchell really impressed me with the Miami Heat, and he got rewarded a nice 2-year extension by the Miami Heat this offseason. Last year in 30 regular season games with the Miami Heat included 15 starts. He averaged 10 points, 5 assists, 1.5 steals, and shot a career high 44.5% from 3 on 3 attempts a night, which was the highest since his rookie season with the Sacramento Kings back in 2022. I trust DaVon Mitchell, who has maybe the best nickname in all basketball, which is Off Night, with Eric Spoelstra in a full season sample size next year. Like I said before with Anthony Simons, DaVon Mitchell hasn't been on that many great teams in his career. The 2023 Kings were obviously great, but the 2025 Raptors weren't as good, and then he ended up getting traded to the Miami Heat, where they were at least a little bit more competitive. And I struggle to try to figure out what the Heat are going to do now with Norman Powell in the mix. Is Powell going to be a 6-man? Is Mitchell going to come off the bench? And is Tyler Hero going to be the point guard? So for now, I'm going to have DaVon Mitchell as my 25th ranked point guard, because he's a lot better of a defender than everybody we have mentioned so far outside of Cason Wallace. And I do think DaVon is a little bit more polished as an offensive player than Cason Wallace right now as well. And in that 4-game sweep against the Cleveland Cavaliers, you can make an argument Mitchell was the best Miami Heat on the floor. He averaged 15 points, 6 assists, and shot 50% from 3 and 61% from the field. He's still just 26 years old, and I think could have a big year with the Miami Heat next season, because they need some perimeter defense, and DaVon Mitchell can still be an elite point of attack defender and be a plus 3-point shooter and playmaker as well. Now, here's where I had a tough time ranking Dejounte Murray. I have him coming in at number 24. He was a lot higher than this last year, but now I got to take into account a really poor 31-game sample size with the Pelicans and him coming off an Achilles tear at 28 years old. He suffered that Achilles tear in January last year, so he may not come back till after the All-Star break in 2026. The Pelicans drafted Jeremiah Fears. They have Jose Alvarado. They have another point guard that I'm going to get to in a couple spots. And I do think Murray at number 24 here is probably the peak for the 2026 season. season. You'd be happy if he was the 24th best point guard in the NBA coming off this Achilles tear. Like I said, it was a very poor sample size in 31 games for the Pelicans in 2025. He shot 39% from the field, 29% from three, did not take strides defensively after having some really down years on that end with the Atlanta Hawks. He did average also 3.5 turnovers a night, 17.5 points, and 7.5 assists. He's still a good player in this league, but there's just too much unknown with Dejounte Murray. We will see him next year in 2026, but I'm not sure it's going to be the same Dejounte Murray we saw at the end of the 2024 season with the Atlanta Hawks. Coming in at number 23 is a former New Orleans Pelican that was traded to the Washington Wizards this offseason. I hinted at this player earlier on when I was talking about Bub Carrington, and that is 33-year-old CJ McCollum. Now, CJ McCollum is still kind of like a combo guard. He's always been a shooting guard in his career, but last year for the New Orleans Pelicans, he ended up playing 80% of his minutes at the point guard position. In 2024, it was 88% of his minutes at the point guard position, and in 2023 with the Pels, 69% of his minutes at the point guard position. So I could expect him to be maybe the opening night starting point guard for the Wizards, and Bub Carrington could be a backup point guard slash six man. They could reverse at a certain time as well. And last year, McCollum was maybe the only good Pelican at times. He averaged 21 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. I really thought he was going to get traded at the deadline at some point. 44% from the field, 37% from three. For some reason, just 71% from the free throw line. But he's a solid playmaker and initiator. He's still a fantastic ball handler. And at 6'3", it probably makes more sense for him to be a true point guard next year for the Wizards to set up Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly, and Trey Johnson going forward. We still have no idea how Brian Keefe is going to run out this Washington Wizards lineup because they have so many wings. Even though they bought out Marcus Smart, who is a perimeter player, they still have Trey Johnson, Corey Kispert, Bilal Coulibaly, newly acquired Cam Whitmore, Will Riley, a bunch of guys in the mix. But right now, I'm going to have McCollum and Carrington at point guards, and I think McCollum will be better than everybody we mentioned so far in 2026, although there is a chance that somebody like a Dylan Harper or a Bub Carrington takes a leap next year. And then one spot ahead of CJ McCollum, I have all these guys basically right next to each other. Jordan Poole, the former Washington Wizard that was traded for CJ McCollum in the offseason, that I expect to be the opening night point guard while DeJounte Murray is out. I expect Jeremiah Fears and Jose Alvarado to back him up, and they can have Herb Jones, Zion Williamson, Trey Murphy, and Yves Missi all out there at the same time. And last year, Jordan Poole was a massive bounce back player after a very poor first year in Washington in 2024, where he shot 41% from the field and 32% from three. That went up to 43% from the field and 37% from three. The minutes went down, the shots went slightly up. He was great at the line last year, 88% on 4 attempts a night, averaged 20.5 points, 3 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. Poole is still probably overpaid a little bit because he's not the best defender in the world. He's probably not a ceiling raiser anymore. And you really handicap your team building just because of the contract where he's going to be making $31 million in 2026 and $34 million in 2027. But he's still a good player. He's still somebody that can average 20 points on solid enough efficiency. Still needs to be better at the rim. I'm excited to watch him maybe with Herb Jones or Jose Alvarado and Trey Murphy and just better defenders in New Orleans than there was in Washington last year. And I think he has a lot more upside than the guys I just talked about that are kind of linked to him in CJ McCollum and DeJounte Murray for the 2026 season. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Coming in at number 21, I have Andrew Nemhard, who's expected to be the starting point guard for the Indiana Pacers. So I mentioned in the beginning of the video that I was not going to be ranking Tyrese Haliburton because he's not going to play at all in 2026, and this is a 2026 ranking. And Andrew Nemhard, who's always been a playoff riser, had somewhat of a disappointing regular season last year, you could say. He shot 49% from the field in 2024. That dropped to 45% from the field in 2025. The three-point shot dropped as well. Now, Nemhard had an injury to start off the season last year, which could have affected his overall season sample size. But he went from a 57% true shooting in 2024 to a 54% true shooting, well below average in 2025. He was a shooting guard last year, but is expected to be the starting point guard for this team. That extension is fully kicked in, and Andrew Nemhard was a great defender, so I'm already giving him a bump because of that elite point of attack defense and what he could be as a switchable guard defender. I'm expecting the numbers to look a lot better on paper next year. He was obviously great for the Pacers yet again in the playoffs. Maybe not as good as he was in 2024, but still had his moments against the Milwaukee Bucks and the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first 2 series. And hey, he did shoot 42% from 3 against the Thunder in the NBA Finals. He's 6'5". He could end up on an all-defensive team, and they're going to need him to step up while Tyrese Haliburton is out for the year. And I expect Nemhard to be a lot better in 2026 when he's still just 25 years old. Coming in at number 20, I have Josh Giddy of the Chicago Bulls. Yes, Josh Giddy, when I'm recording this, hasn't technically signed with the Bulls. I expect him to be back with the Bulls in some way, shape, or form this offseason. Giddy is 22 years old. That definitely just had the best year of his career, averaging 14.5 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists for the Chicago Bulls, but was a lot better in the second half of the season, where he had a 54% true shooting percentage in 51 games before the All-Star break, and then in a 19-game sample size after the All-Star break, a 62% true shooting percentage on a 25% usage rate. He averaged 21 points, 10.5 rebounds, and 9 assists. He was almost a walking triple-double every single night. He shot 45% from 3, and Giddy is nowhere near the defender as Andrew Nemhard is, and I would actually love to see Giddy more so as a wing scorer at times than a true ball handler, because I think he could be a very lethal player on the perimeter. He's not too far off to Franz Wagner in terms of their size and frame, but Giddy at 22 still intrigues me a lot. If that shot could be somewhat consistent, shooting 38% from 3 last year in 70 games is encouraging going forward. If he could be a little bit better at the free throw line, and with his high usage, could be one of the more effective playmakers in the NBA. Coming in at number 19, I have Fred VanVleet of the Houston Rockets. Definitely more safe pick here, because Fred VanVleet is going to be going into year number 10. Basically, for the last 6 years, Fred VanVleet has played over 35 minutes a night for both the Toronto Raptors and the Houston Rockets. Last year, he did struggle, though. I expect him to be a lot better this year, now that he's going to have Kevin Durant to help him in the offensive half court. I expect Amen Thompson, who I will probably have in the small forward rankings, and Alperen Sengun to be even better next year. And I think Fred VanVleet is a better defender than Josh Giddy, Jordan Poole, CJ McCollum, Dejounte Murray right now. I definitely take Andrew Nemhard's 2026 defense over Fred VanVleet, but I think the field goal percentage will be a lot better. The three-point shot will be a lot better, because I think the volume will go down a little bit, and he's just a safe option here. Yeah, there's a chance that Josh Giddy, Andrew Nemhard, Jordan Poole, and Dylan Harper could all be better than Fred VanVleet next year. That's not out of the possibility. I just think Fred VanVleet has a higher floor than some of those guys right now. If you remember my rankings last year, I was way too high on Emanuel Quickley. I had him as my most improved player. I'm going to be high on Emanuel Quickley when everybody's probably out on him. I have him coming in at number 18. And you know what? I may burn myself with this one again. Emanuel Quickley is probably out in everybody's mind because he was banged up a ton last year. He only played 33 games, had an injury to start off the year, had an injury in the middle of the year, and he's making $32.5 million. Yes, Emanuel Quickley is overpaid, but I do think he could be a good player yet again in 2026. The sample size was too good in 2024. And honestly, at the end of the year, I like what I saw from Emanuel Quickley in Toronto. He played 17 games after the All-Star break, and he had a 57% true shooting. He averaged 18.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 6 assists, and was a really good defensive player in the second half, in my opinion. He's going to be the starting point guard next year. Now, there is a chance Darko Rajakovic plays Scotty Barnes at the point guard spot with Brandon Ingram into the fold, but it does feel like RJ Barrett is more so the odd man out for Toronto, and he could get benched for Grady Dick at a point next year. I really like Emanuel Quickley's point of attack defense. He's a phenomenal transition player. If he could just be slightly better at the rim, I trust the free throw shot, I trust the three-point shot, I trust the playmaking ability. I think Emanuel Quickley could be a top 20 point guard like the Raptors paid him to be one next year. One spot ahead of Emanuel Quickley is maybe what I thought Emanuel Quickley was going to be last year, and that is going to be Peyton Pritchard of the Boston Celtics. He may start over Anthony Simons. He may come off the bench like he did last year, where he was the best bench player in the NBA, because Peyton Pritchard broke out and won 6th Man of the Year. He could have won Most Improved Player as well. He went from 9.5 points in 2024 to 14 points per game in 2025, and really stepped up when there were injuries to Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, and the Celtics last season. And he was an elite three-point shooter as well. He averaged around 7.5 threes a night and shot 40% from 3, and is a lot better than guys like Emanuel Quickley and Fred VanVleet at the rim, where he ended up shooting 64% on twos, 47% field goal percentage. The usage, the shots per game are probably going to go up in 2026 with no Jason Tatum in the mix. He's still 27 years old. I think he's a fine enough defender for somebody that is a smaller guard, and maybe the ceiling could be a little bit higher for Peyton Pritchard. Let me know down below. Do you think this is too high for Peyton Pritchard, or do you think this is too low? And now when I'm going through these, there's probably so many more honorable mentions that I could have had. Yes, Scoot Henderson could have made this list as well, but coming in at number 16, I have Scoot's current teammate and Peyton Pritchard's former teammate, Drew Holiday. We still have no idea how Chauncey Billups is going to create this starting lineup. We definitely know they're going to start Donovan Clingan and Denny Avdia. I'd assume they're going to start Drew Holiday, given what they gave up for him and how much he's getting paid, and they need his defense, so they have to start either Tumani Kamara, Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson, and Jeremy Grant for those final 4 spots. Maybe Scoot does come off the bench next year. We know Chauncey Billups likes to play the proven guys. Drew is going to be 35 years old. Hopefully he's going to be a little bit more healthy than he was last year. year where he did miss 20 games for the Boston Celtics and didn't really look 100% in the playoffs, so Jrue's numbers dropped a ton, but in my opinion was still an all-world defender at the guard position. And maybe outside of Andrew Nemhard and Cason Wallace, there's not many players defensively that I will take at the point guard position over Jrue Holiday than what we've mentioned so far. And everybody ahead of Jrue, outside of one, Jrue will be better than defensively next year. A lot of the point guards in the top 15 are offensive minded. So I think Jrue's numbers are going to look better. He's going to go to a place where he's going to probably get more shots per game than what he did as like the 5th option for the Boston Celtics, at least what he was in 2025. But he's definitely a tough guy to predict for 2026, given that he's going to be 35 years old in a completely new environment. Also a big risk for my next guy that was banged up a ton in the 2025 season. He missed 47 games, and that is Jaylen Suggs of the Orlando Magic. Now that they acquired Desmond Bane this offseason, Suggs is not going back to the 2. He's going to be the starting point guard for the Orlando Magic, and Suggs broke out for the Magic in the 2024 season. 75 games, which was a career high. In only 27 minutes, he averaged 12.5 points. He was on all defensive second team, 2.5 assists, 1.5 steals, and is one of the best defenders that we're going to talk about. Definitely the best defender out of anybody here in the top 15. And I expect a 24-year-old Jaylen Suggs that's now going to have Desmond Bane, Franz Wagner, and Paolo Banchero around him to average a career high in assists, can still be an all defensive type guard, something we forget about a little bit given how banged up he was last year. So I'm expecting a big bounce back year for Jaylen Suggs. But hey, if that injury lingers a little bit more, maybe he's going to be banged up again, I could definitely see guys like Peyton Pritchard, Fred VanVleet, Josh Giddy, Emanuel Quickley being better than Suggs in 2026. So coming in at number 14, maybe lower than you expected, just because he suffered a serious toe injury and he's going to be sidelined all offseason long, and he's likely to get to miss some time at the start of the regular season. That's Darius Garland of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, Darius Garland was great in the regular season last year for Cleveland. In 75 games, he played around 30 minutes a night because they had an elite backup point guard in Ty Jerome. He averaged 20.5 points, a real bounce back year from an injury-riddled 2024. He averaged 6.5 assists and shot at 40% from 3. And Garland only played 2 games against the Miami Heat in round number 1, but was great in those 2 games. He really struggled playing through an injury against the Indiana Pacers in round number 2. And we know that Darius Garland is not a great defender whatsoever, but he really is one of the best initiators and playmakers and more efficient three-point shooters at the point guard position. I'm just being a little cautious with Darius Garland because he's not going to have an offseason, a training camp, or preseason ramp up, and may miss the start of the regular season. So he may not get off to the best start in the world, but will probably come more comfortable in the regular season, maybe once the 2026 calendar year hits. Coming in at number 13, I have Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets, somebody that got off to a disappointing start last year after a really poor Olympics for Team Canada last summer. Jamal Murray was just really good yet again in 2025. He wasn't an all-star because we know Jokic has never played with an all-star player before, but he did average 21.5 points, 6 assists, 1.5 steals, 47% from the field, 39% from 3. In my opinion, is a better scorer than Darius Garland. Maybe not as better of an initiator, but he gets that bump playing with Nikola Jokic. I think this offense is going to be so much fun to watch, going from Michael Porter Jr. to Cam Johnson this offseason. And Jamal Murray is going to be healthy to start off the year, so I trust him a little bit more than Darius Garland going forward. He's going to be 28 years old. He's in the midst of his prime, and I think this could end up being a career year for Jamal Murray, and this may end up being too low, because this is probably where my hottest take of the video is going to be. Coming in at number 12, I have LaMelo Ball. Yes, I know. Darius Garland, Jamal Murray, they were better than LaMelo Ball last year, who played 47 games. He averaged 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 7.5 assists, but the efficiency wasn't great. 40% from the field, 33% from 3. Some of it was really empty stats because the Hornets had nobody else that could really score the basketball, and they were an abysmal first half team. But LaMelo Ball is going to be healthy all offseason long, which is going to be huge for him going into next year's season, and they got him some help. They got some great backup guards where LaMelo isn't going to have to take 21 shots a night. He now has Spencer Dinwiddie, Colin Sexton, Trey Mann healthy again. You have Brandon Miller healthy to help him as a sidekick. They picked up Con Knipple this offseason as well. I'm very high on LaMelo Ball and the Charlotte Hornets as a whole in 2026. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but I think they're going to look a lot better. And if LaMelo Ball can really buy into what Charlotte is building, and I know we've been saying this for the last few years, but this is by far the best Hornets team we have seen since that 2022 play-in team. And it's a lot more exciting as well because guys like Terry Rozier, PJ Washington, and Gordon Hayward aren't here anymore. I don't trust this team's defense whatsoever, but I do think LaMelo Ball can average 20 plus points, over 8 assists a night, and I do think has better defensive upside than Jamal Murray, Darius Garland, and even some of the point guards I have ahead of him because of his 6'7" frame, and he can really use that to his advantage next year. It's now or never for LaMelo Ball, and I do think he can have a career year with the Hornets in 2026. Another tough guy to rank here, just missing out on the top 10. He's definitely a top 10 point guard when he's healthy, but it's Kyrie Irving. Kyrie's going to be 33, almost 34 years old next year, and he's coming off an ACL tear that he suffered in the second half last season and won't make his debut till around sometime in January. So we're probably going to get less than a 40-game sample size from Kyrie Irving, but he he was phenomenal, especially after the Luka Doncic trade. Overall, he averaged 24.5 points, 5 rebounds, 4.5 assists in 2025. He shot 47% from the field, 40% from three, 91% from the free throw line. The best ball handler in the NBA and one of the more efficient scoring guards in the NBA as well in 36 minutes a night. I'm super excited to watch Kyrie Irving play with Cooper Flag and Anthony Davis in hopefully more than a 30-game sample size next year. It's just because he's a little bit older, coming off a major knee injury, and may only end up playing 40 games. I can't confidently say that Kyrie Irving will be a top 10 point guard when he returns next season. Coming in at number 10, I have Tyrese Maxiell, the Philadelphia 76ers. Maybe a hot take to have him ahead of Darius Garland and Jamal Murray, LaMelo Ball, and Kyrie when he returns as well. But I'm very excited about Tyrese Maxiell in 2026 because hopefully Joel Embiid should be healthy to start off the year, and Maxiell plays a lot better when Joel Embiid is out there, and he could be a number 2 rather than a number 1 because Maxiell really struggled last year as a number 1 option. We see how tough it is for LaMelo Ball, and Maxiell last year as the number 1 option, taking 21 shots a night, shot 43% from the field, and 33% from 3. But he won most improved in 2024. He was an all-star that year as well, where he shot 37% from 3 and 45% from the field. They're probably going to bring back Quentin Grimes. They drafted VJ Edgecombe. Jared McCain's going to be healthy again. There's going to be a lot of players that are going to have some gravity in the offensive half court that can allow things to open up for Tyrese Maxiell. I think the efficiency will bounce back in 2026. He's going to be 25 years old next year. He's going to be healthier at the start than Darius Garland. I trust the health track record over somebody like Jamal Murray and LaMelo Ball as well. And I think Maxiell can be a top 10 point guard next season. Coming in at number 9, though, somebody that I was lower on last year. I had him around 15 in my point guard rankings. I thought it was going to be a regression year, and I was dead wrong, and I'll admit that. I had James Harden too low last year. I had Emanuel Quickley ranked ahead of him, and I was wrong. That was a terrible take. Has not aged well. I can admit that. This year, though, I'm going to have James Harden as a top 10 point guard for 2026. I have him coming in at number 9. Now, we know James Harden suffers sometimes in the playoffs. He does have some disappointing outings, but he's still a good regular season point guard. He averaged 23 points per game last year. Now, I do expect those numbers to drop a little bit. I know they ended up trading away Norman Powell, but Kawhi Leonard will be healthy at the start of the year. They brought in Bradley Beal. They brought in a better backup point guard in Chris Paul. They also added John Collins this offseason. But Harden last year did average 8.7 assists, 5.8 rebounds, was an elite free throw shooter, was a solid 3-point shooter, but did struggle at the rim as well, just 41% from the field. And maybe with adding back Kawhi Leonard to start off the year, John Collins, Bradley Beal, and Chris Paul, Harden's efficiency could be better because he's not going to have all the offensive stress reliant on somebody that was 35 years old, but he's going to be 36 next year. We've never really seen him be a super consistent playoff performer. I still think he's going to be a top 10 point guard in the league. I wouldn't take the chances that he's going to be an all-star in 2026, but like I said, I was dead wrong last year. I don't want to be wrong again about James Harden. Coming in at number 8, maybe the most polarizing point guard in the NBA, Trey Young. And I think Trey Young is going to be a lot better in 2026 than he was in 2025. With the injury to Jaylen Johnson, there was not a lot of shot creators in Atlanta last year. Trey Young's efficiency was maybe at a career worst. 41% from the field, a career worst. 34% from 3, one of the worst of his career. But he did average 24 points and led the NBA in assists with 11.6. You can make a good argument that Trey Young is the best passing point guard in the NBA. And if he's not 1, he's definitely in the top 5 or the top 3. And I'm excited to watch Trey Young, who took a little bit of a step forward defensively. Still not great on that end of the court, but he's going to have a healthy Jaylen Johnson to play off him now. They added Kristaps Porzingis, a great lob threat in Asa Newell. Onyeka Okongwu looked better in the second half. A year 2 Reece Shea, a year 4 Dyson Daniels, and just so much more talent in Atlanta. And I think Trey Young is going to be playing with more intensity and could bounce back in 2026, given that the Hawks should probably make the playoffs next year since they didn't make it in 2025 or 2024. And I think Trey Young could be a fringe top 5 point guard and could be an all-star yet again. Coming in one spot ahead of Trey Young, I debated this one a lot. I do have DeAaron Fox. Now, Trey Young may have more flashier numbers. He may score more than Fox and definitely get more assists, but I think Fox will be a better player overall. He's a better defender than Trey Young, in my opinion, a better transition player, and he's going to get a massive bump playing with Victor Wembanyama. It was a very small sample size that Fox and Wemby played together last year. It was only 5 games. Fox averaged 21 points and around 8 assists in those games as well. And a 17-game sample size with the Spurs, the efficiency wasn't great, and we know Fox's 3-point shot can be very hit or miss. Last year, he shot 31% from 3 in 62 games between the Sacramento Kings and the San Antonio Spurs. But Fox is 27 years old. He may or may not get a contract extension from the Spurs this offseason. I'm going to bet that that he does end up getting one, and he's got a good backup point guard behind him in Dylan Harper, who we talked about in the beginning of these rankings. But I just think Fox playing off of Stephon Castle, and more so Victor Wembanyama, is going to have him maybe to have a career year in terms of assists in 2026, and I think he's a better defender than Trey Young, James Harden, Tyrese Maxiell, and Kyrie Irving. And maybe another hot take for me, I think Ja Morant could be the 6th best point guard in 2026. Ja Morant is going to be 26 years old next year. He was banged up yet again at times, only 50 games last year, so if he could be just a little bit more healthy, Ja Morant could be one of the best point guards in the NBA, because we know that Taylor Jenkins' offensive system last year and what they changed did not suit Ja Morant whatsoever. Before the All-Star break, he played 32 games with a 55% true shooting, shot 32% from 3, and averaged a career low in the first half, basically 20 points. He had 7.5 assists. Do you guys remember second half Ja Morant? He finished off on a great note, especially after they fired Taylor Jenkins. In 18 games after the All-Star break, Ja Morant had a 57% true shooting percentage. He averaged 27.5 points, 7 assists, and 4 rebounds, and looked really good against the Thunder in Game 3 before suffering that series-ending injury. It's a new system that worked for Ja in the second half last year. Desmond Bane is out, so Ja Morant may need to step up even more offensively. Last year could have been looked at as a rehab year as well, with Ja Morant suffering that major shoulder injury in 2024. And if Ja Morant can play a career high games in 2026, he can have even a better year than what 2022 was. And the point guard position is loaded. And this may be a hot take as well, but coming in at number 5, I have Steph Curry for 2026. Steph was a top 3 point guard last year, but I'm projecting next year. And Steph is going to be 38 years old at the end of next year's season. 38. Now, I'll never not appreciate what Steph Curry did in the second half last year, especially after acquiring Jimmy Butler. I think a big reason why the Warriors were the best team in the West after getting Jimmy wasn't more so for Jimmy, but it was because of what Steph Curry was doing. Before the All-Star break, he averaged 23 points. After the All-Star break, 27 points on 66% true shooting percentage. That is just out of this world numbers and efficiency for somebody that is a smaller guard. He's still the best 3-point shooter in the league. He still has insane gravity. He's one of the best, if not the best, free throw shooter in the league. He averaged 6 assists last year, and I'm so excited to watch a full season with Steph and Jimmy in Golden State. I just have to be a little bit conservative with this Steph ranking, given that he's going to be 38 years old next season, and the Warriors are still asking him to do so much. But I don't think he finishes any worse than 5 or 6, and he could end up as the 2nd best point guard in the league. But coming in at number 4, somebody that I am just riding the momentum. I expected him to have a career year in 2025, at least was right on that one, and that's Kade Cunningham. Yeah, I think Kade Cunningham is going to be the 4th best point guard in 2026 as a 23-year-old last year in 70 games, which was a career high for Kade. He was on All-NBA 3rd team, an All-Star, 7th in MVP voting. He averaged 26 points, 9 assists a night, 6 rebounds. He shot 47% from the field, 35% from 3, and 84% from the free throw line, with his 2nd best player, Jaden Ivey, getting hurt. So he was delegating and being complimented by Asar Thompson, who was recovering from a blood clot in year number 2, a rookie Ron Holland, Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris, and Malik Beasley, who's currently in a gambling scandal right now. But Kade Cunningham is one of the best young players in the NBA, period. And the sky is the limit for Kade in 2026. Who knows? He could end up being a dark horse MVP candidate, as the Detroit Pistons had a preseason over-under at 25.5 games last year, and they won 44 games because of Kade Cunningham and what he did. And I may be too low having him in at number 4. Now, I take into account what I could see in the playoffs as well from these players, especially when we get closer to the top. At number 3, I have Jaylen Brunson, and I don't think that's a biased Knicks fan take. Now, if you wanted to have Kade or Steph ahead of Brunson, that is fine with me next year. I definitely debated those 3 in their ranking, but I had Jaylen Brunson 6 last year behind Ja Morant, and I was dead wrong about that one. Jaylen Brunson is going to be 29 years old this season, and he's coming off maybe the best year of his career, and he's been nothing short than a top 10 point guard since signing with the New York Knicks in the 2022 offseason. He averaged 24 points in 2023, 28.5 points in 2024, 26 points on elite efficiency in 2025, 48% from the field, 38% from 3, and he averaged a career high 7.3 assists. He had a 60% true shooting percentage as a smaller guard for somebody that accumulated a 29% usage rate in 2025. And don't get me started on the playoff performance and the clutch performance from Brunson. He won Clutch Player of the Year last year, so he was the clutchest player in the NBA. And let me list off what he's done in the playoffs in 7 playoff series with the New York Knicks since 2023. 24 points against the Cavs in 23, 31 points in round number 2 against the Heat. Then in 2024, he averaged 35.5 points against the Sixers, 30 points against the Pacers in their round 2 exit. Last year against the Pistons, 31 points in 6 games, 26 points in 6 games against the Celtics, and 30 points in 6 games against the Indiana Pacers. And all those series were on good efficiency when you take into account what happens in the playoffs and on the volume that Jaylen Brunson was providing the New York Knicks. And I'm going to stand by my guy. I think he'll be the 3rd best point guard in the 2026 season. You can let me know if you disagree down below. Coming in at number 2, I have Jaylen Brunson's old Dallas Maverick teammate. Now, neither one of them are there anymore. I got Luka Donic of the LA Lakers. Last year was maybe the worst year of Luka Doncic's career outside of maybe his rookie season, and he still averaged 28 points, 8 rebounds, 7.5 assists on 58% true shooting percentage, which is pretty above average for somebody with that volume. And he's 26 years old. He looks as motivated as ever. It looks like Luka is getting into shape this offseason as well. He's going to have the Eurobasket to ramp him up for the 2026 season, his first full year with the LA Lakers. And I think he's going to want to prove Nico Harrison even more wrong in the 2026 season. Luka is probably going to finish top 5 in MVP voting yet again. He was somebody that had 5 straight All-NBA first teams from his sophomore year in 2020 to his last full year with the Dallas Mavericks in 2024, where yeah, he won the scoring title, finished 3rd in MVP voting, and brought the Dallas Mavericks to the NBA Finals. He had a couple injuries last year. He was clearly out of shape at times, and I think a remotivated 26-year-old Luka Doncic is going to be a stud yet again in the 2026 NBA season, and I really thought about having him at number 1. But yeah, it was just too hard not to have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the star of the 2025 NBA season, not at number 1. Shai, at 26 years old, won MVP, Western Conference Finals MVP, and Finals MVP for the OKC Thunder. He was the scoring champion, 32.7 points a night, All-NBA first team, an All-Star obviously, averaged 6.5 assists, 5 rebounds, and it's probably the best defensive point guard out of anybody in the top 10, maybe outside of Kade Cunningham or De'Aaron Fox. Nikola Jokic had maybe the best year of his career, and he's somebody that is probably going to be a top 10 player when it's all said and done, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander still beat him out for MVP. He was the best player on a 68-win team, and he was elite as a scorer in the playoffs as well. He averaged 28 points in their first-round sweep against the Memphis Grizzlies. He averaged 30 points in 7 games against Denver in round number 2, 31 points in the Western Conference Finals against the Timberwolves, and averaged 30 points in 7 games in the NBA Finals against the Indiana Pacers. I'm so locked in on Luka in 2026, but what Shai just did in 2025, I couldn't have him any lower than number 1. So that is going to be for me. Hope you guys did enjoy my top 30 point guard rankings. If you agree or disagree with any of these, let me know down below. Drop a thumbs up if you guys do want to see the shooting guard edition of this. That will come out very soon, and I'll catch you guys in that one. Peace.